Hi, I'm Charlotte, and this is Time Mama Tries to Read. I thought I would film a video while I've got the drive to do so, and it's going to be a little bit of a quick fire round because I haven't filled you in on anything that I've been reading. I'm filming in the house because Stephen is out, so I'm in charge, and everyone is in front of their relevant TVs, so hopefully I'll be able to get through it without being disturbed. So I want to give more space to this, but this is Natives by Akala, Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire. And I think when I last came to you, I was partway through. Possibly I had finished it. But if I hadn't updated, it's amazing. And certainly if you're in the UK and you care about the Black Lives Matter movement, this is a definite must read. I did what I was meant to do, Ariahs Readathon, and I got a TBR together, and I was going to do a video, but I didn't do that. And then the actual readathon, as I've said many times before, readathons get away from me, and this one was no exception. It also wasn't great that it came at a particularly bad time for me in my mental space, and I just found that I was reading really sporadically as it was. I was finding some books really triggering. I've disturbingly started to notice that sometimes I get my tightness in my chest and my shallow breathing when I'm actually reading, which is really bizarre. I've only ever really had it when I've opened a laptop or turned on a computer, or maybe there's been something on the news. But sometimes when I'm actually opening a book, I start to notice that I'm shallow breathing and that I've got these pains. So I think I've got to listen to that. And sometimes that was happening with some of the more serious books that I've been reading, which is unfortunate. And I have powered through, but not to the extent where I felt that I could complete the readathon. So I'm really gutted, and I hope to do better next year because the prompts were amazing for that readathon. What I did start with was I started with My Best Friend's Exorcism by Hendrix, which was my one for the book elitism. So in a way I'm really glad. I needed to have something light, but also I'm a bit sad that out of all the amazing books that I chose, that I didn't get to read some of the more kind of politically relevant that I had chosen. But this was great. This, you don't really need to hear my review on this. I think everyone's been talking about it. It is just like, it's like Buffy, but on steroids. It's just gone mad. And I wasn't in school in the 80s. I'm not quite old enough to be in school in the 80s, in secondary school anyway, but I felt a real 80s, I don't know, I felt like I knew exactly the atmosphere that I was meant to be in, maybe because I've watched a lot of films, you know, as a 90s child I watched a lot of 80s films, so I just found it really comforting in a weird way, and I thought the ending was really well done. So there's another one of his, but I can't remember what it's called now, that everyone's getting. It's got an orange on the cover. Isn't it The Vampires of the South? I might have made that up. So I will hopefully be getting to that. Then, the other thing that was on my list actually for Ariahs Readathon was Mistresses, A History of the Other Woman by Elizabeth Abbott, which I pulled out for the prompt F, slut shaming. I had to ditch this, guys. I was in, how far was I in? I think I got to about 50 pages. I've taken my bookmark out. And then I had to go on Goodreads and check and see what was going on. Now, this book came out quite a while ago, 2011. So a good decade. No, if you're classing certain historical characters that were slaves as mistresses, ooh, you've missed the benchmark. And you know, she's kind of talking. You couldn't write this book today, I'd like to think. There's a section, Eastern concubines and harems. Of course, as soon as you get to European mistresses, they're all queens and the courtesans of kings. So I just found it really worrisome how she was talking about women that literally had no choice in their in what was going on in their, well, as mistresses, as she calls them. It was just, and Goodreads agreed with me, so for the most part, but loads of people missed it, and that's not to say that I wouldn't have missed it at one time, but I don't think we can keep missing stuff like that. Then I can't remember what order I've read these in. I very quickly read Mary L. Trump's Too Much and Never Enough which is the famous book now that Trump tried to stop being published. I really enjoyed it, and it kind of confirmed to me that he is a megalomaniac and he is not as smart as he thinks he is, and all the things I kind of thought about him from afar. You know, I don't think we get as much press about him in the UK as we do as you guys do in the US, but it confirmed everything I thought about him. It had some really strong personal anecdotes. There is an element of Mary Trump missing the mark with regards to how privileged she was. She kind of talks about it, but never really explicitly says how lucky she was and how lucky she continues to be financially because of the family she grew up in, and at once denounces how much money they made as being disgusting, but then her and her brother do vie for their fair share of the will when their grandfather dies. I'm not sure you can say that the money is tainted and the money is gross and then go for your fair share because, you know, you want to make a point. I think ultimately you just want the money. If you want to make a point, you'll get that money and then you'll give it away. So there was short-sightedness. I kind of expected there to be, and there wasn't as much as I thought there would be, so that's good. Then I read The Whole Picture by Alice Procter. The colonial story of art in our museums and why we need to talk about it. Alice Procter is Australian, I believe. Where is she? Yeah, she's Australian but grew up in Hong Kong and London. This is really good, and if you haven't read anything about museums and the way they curate their pieces, or galleries and how they curate their pieces, this it would be an excellent introduction, if nothing else. But it also has obviously it's going into a much deeper look at the unsavoury, and that's like the most politically acceptable term, nature of a lot of the things, especially in the UK. And there's a lot of stuff here that is UK based. She does talk about other places, but you know, we are, you know, it's the British Empire. We stole a lot of things from a lot of places and they're still here, incredibly. She tackles that really well, I thought. I think the editor should have stepped in and done a little bit of tweaking here and there. That's like a really picky little comment, but I found that some of her turns of phrase, which I found really endearing, were just repeated throughout the book, and it made it less endearing. You know, it's like an editor should have stepped in then and said, chop that, and it always saddens me a little bit when that doesn't happen, because it kind of ruins the flow when you're getting irritated by something minor like that didn't need to be there. And it's, in some ways, she's covering such a huge subject that I can't wait for her next book, which I feel will delve in a little bit more into some of these subjects. But as somebody who works in the cultural sector, so I work in galleries and museums, this was absolutely something that I needed to read, and I kind of feel like everybody I work with should read it as well. And then I haven't finished it. How far am I? I'm about 2/3 of the way through. Sukhdev Sandhu's London Calling, How Black and Asian Writers Imagined a City. So I sort of did this for some of it I was reading for my own pleasure, but I was also reading it for a project I'm doing for work. And I found it really elucidating, and I've learnt a lot. Okay, so I cannot say how much I've learnt. So many new writers to me. I really love the vibe of London that he creates. But I found some of it very troubling, and I don't know if you could write it today. I think this is at least a decade old. This is 2003, so this is almost 20. Things like he refers to the murder of Stephen Lawrence as the Stephen Lawrence debacle, which I just gasped at when I read it. And well, one of the biggest things that I just couldn't quite believe what I was reading is when he was talking about black women writers and the way in, you know, because there's a lot of focus on men in the early part of the book, and then he's going through chronologically through London's writers. So he gets to a certain point where he's like, you know, we're talking about feminism and black women, and then as his example, he uses Jean Rhys. And if you're going, what? Maybe spitting out your tea, you can join the club. I mean, I love Jean Rhys, but she's white, and he justifies it. He has a whole paragraph justifying why he does it. And I think later on he does actually include some writing by some black women, but I was really gutted. And I'm not really sure what was going on with that. I think we need a longer video to pull that apart. So I'm partway through reading The Enchanted Life now, Unlocking the Magic of the Everyday by Sharon Blackie. I've dibbled and dabbled in other books, and I just can't make up my mind this week what I want to read. I haven't really read for 2 weeks, pretty much. It's just been a really, I was kind of kind of not great, and then I nosedived and then kept nosediving. So if you've got, loads of you came forward when I did my last video when I talked about emetophobia, and actually it was the video that I couldn't deal with the comments, so I don't think I've actually responded to any of your lovely comments, and I'm really, really sorry, but I just had a complete seizing up of being able to, like, you know, having to, I really wanted to give so much back to the comments, and it meant that I could do nothing. Which again, if you've got anxiety, you'll know what I mean. Loads of you commented and said you totally understood what I meant by emetophobia, which is a fear of vomiting. It's a phobia of vomiting, and how it can be debilitating. And I was so overwhelmed. So you'll know what I mean when I say when you have a bad 2 weeks, you can't do anything. Oh, it's the dogs barking and my child shouting. Oh, it's taken a turn. I better wrap it up. Okay, I'm reading that. I'll do a better video in a while. Take care. Bye. So if you think Doris has got problems, I cleared all of these out and put them next door, and then they've just come back. They've just grown. So I don't know if you can see some of the things that I've got. I've got new bell hooks. This is my son's room, by the way. This is really bad. This is one of the books that I tried to get into. I just wasn't in the right mood. Oh, trash and stuff. And then there's some more books for work. And some of these were meant to be for Naraya's readathon. Let me zoom back out. Got some more stuff for work. And then I got a gorgeous order of stuff from Jacaranda Books. I'm guessing that's how you say it. These are my library books. There's another. And there's more. It's embarrassing. Too many books. And, you know, it goes without saying, obviously, that that's a very privileged thing to have too many books. And lockdown has meant that I have bought an excessive amount of books, partly out of sort of feeling sad, and books always making me feel happy when I order them and when they arrive. Partly because of just, I think when everything is going wrong in the world, my instinct is to try and learn more and just sort of correct all ills, but there's just not enough time to do that. You know, maybe in my 20s I could have actually read half of the books I've ordered, and some of it is because I've wanted to support black publishers, or I've wanted to support independent bookshops who are really struggling because of lockdown. So it's been a combination of things, all of which have kind of had, you know, I don't want a virtue signal, but they've had good reasons, but ultimately having too many books is a bit shameful. And I do flip between being embarrassed about it and then also just thinking it is pretty much like my one big vice. I don't tend to overspend on anything else, I don't think. I don't know. It's good to question. Definitely good to question. Probably too many books, I think, is the conclusion. But I've got a booktube channel, so I'm just going to carry on, I think. I was going to bring you outside for some calming nature shots. There's the shed, but there's a low hum of machinery in the field behind. That's our messy path. And also it's freezing and it's drizzling. I don't know what, something, I mean, it's freezing because I'm wearing a crop top, but it was boiling today. In some parts of the UK it was like 35 degrees. I think, what's it here? Oh, we got I can't read that through the camera. 21 now in the polytunnel, so it's probably gone down to about 17 or 18 out here. There's our little cushy seats. So yeah, I'm afraid you're not going to have peaceful nature. Oh, raining on the camera. I'll see you when I see you. Bye.